I'm here with Floris and Tom from Holographics. First, thank you for making the time to talk.
Thanks for stopping by.
So one of the things that when we were looking at the different vendors at NAB, we came across Holographics and we were really impressed with the way you seem to be taking a unique view to CG and the whole video graphics space. Would you like to talk about that a little bit? Because I think it's something really interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I think what sets us apart from other graphic solutions is that you don't really create a full graphics package with holographics. What you do is you pick a couple of widgets that you add to your project, and then you pick a theme, and the rest kind of happens automatically, right? So there is no diving into Photoshop or After Effects and rendering stuff days in advance. It's literally just picking your widgets, adding your typical ticker tape, your lower thirds, and your messages, and the rest just happens.
So from a technical point of view, this isn't a technology underpinning this that you invented. This is something that pretty much everybody uses every day.
Yeah, for sure. We use web browser technology, so what you're looking at here is literally just a Google Chrome window that we've set to full screen. And we use all the power available to us with HTML and CSS to generate the look and feel of these graphics dynamically. And that also means that since it's HTML, it is just a server running a page. You can pull in dynamic data very easily and send updates and integrate with the API and pick your colors, adjust things. It's just CSS. And the cool stuff with that is that there is maybe not a lot of people that know how to operate very specialized software, but there are a lot of people in the world that know how to deal with HTML and CSS.
So pulling in data, that was an interesting thing you just raised. The ability to pull that data can also live anywhere. It doesn't have to be local, correct?
For sure, yeah. So we have, Holographics has a full API. We have support many different protocols, including HTTP, OSC, WebSockets, but then we also have a full software SDK. So anyone technical will be able to just jump right in and start writing their own custom integration. And then, since it is a web browser, web browsers are pretty good with getting feedback from the internet. So you can just write your widget to pull in an RSS feed or some other scoring information that you might need and display that dynamically.
So from a web technologies point of view, the actual graphical aspects of this, that's done through like traditional CSS styling, so nothing custom or unique in terms of new things to learn or new protocols to be invented.
Yes, sir. So our themes are CSS based, and I can show you what happens if you do click between those themes. What happens is you just immediately have a totally different look and feel for your project. And then those themes, you can adjust colors using our application, and we've defined a couple of different color presets here that I can just click between, and you can see that every single theme kind of has its own way of applying those colors. Which makes it really easy. Like, we're a live streaming production company based out of Amsterdam, and we do a lot of work for differing clients. So we might have 4, 5, 6 different clients a week, and they all have their own unique branding. But they don't always have the time or the budget to create a full graphics package. And so what we'll do is we'll show up, sometimes even without anything prepared, get a theme for them, pull in their brand colors, and immediately be ready to go with custom graphics for that customer.
So from the front end point of view, a lot of the things here seem to be designed almost as a menu driven approach to doing this. So you don't really need to have somebody that's a CSS or web expert to get started and to jump in and do this.
If I can do it, then anyone can. Because I'm the producer, so I can play around with it. I can change the fonts or the colors and the themes, of course. So that's really easy, and enter the content.
So you've been using this. So even though you're in sort of the startup area, this has a lot more battle testing, field testing behind it than the typical startup new application.
Yeah. So it has been in beta for the last year. And we've been actually actively using it in productions already for the last year, and we launched a month ago. So now everyone can buy it and use it and try it out.
So from the front end point of view, one of the things that I liked, and we can look in at the front end, a little bit later, but is that it really is laid out in a way that's accessible to somebody that is a producer, that's really looking at the type of graphic they want and the color palette. And it was another interesting thing, when we had talked before, you showed that you don't just pick colors, you pick color palettes. So there's a harmony in what you do. So you don't necessarily have to have a true graphical sense behind you. The program has enough smarts that these things can be defined in advance, and you just use that as a starting point without having to make a lot of critical decisions in a production environment.
Yeah, exactly. You can have your designer advise you on the colors that you want to use and create a custom palette for each client or program. And then all the thing that a producer or the technical producer needs to do is just change them depending on which production they're running. So yeah, that's super easy.
So the fact that this can actually pull data out from other sources means that you could do lower thirds but have the list of names for a production somewhere else in some other format that somebody on the more administrative and not production side could actually manage, and you pull it in then as part of the production?
Totally, yeah.
So.
Yeah. You can also, the same as for entries, for example. So if you create the entries for lower thirds, if you have 20 speakers, for example, you can actually share the database file to your colleague in the field and replace that with your database, and they will have all the entries there. And if there's still a misspelling, they can actually change it on the fly without opening Photoshop at all.
And from what I saw, this seems to be real-time dynamic. So a change made there could appear. So this could be done, a minute before when the guest sits down and they spelled his name wrong, and you have that type of immediacy to making these changes. It's not something that has to propagate or render or any.
Absolutely, yeah. It really is just an HTML page, and if something is misspelled, you click edit, and you can even do this whilst it's live, right? If you see the typo when it's up on the screen, you could click edit and update it, and hopefully no one will have noticed.
So do it a little bit deeper look at this. When you, I want to say render, that's not the correct term. When you actually paint the CSS page, you're painting it into a website, a virtual website that you're hosting in the application. And that website can be accessible to other applications as the ingest point.
Yeah, pretty much. So the application, which you just download and install on your local machine, right? It's not something cloud-based. And that generates an endpoint on your network that you can access. So it's literally just typing in an address into your browser like you would do any other website, except it's an endpoint located on your local network. And then that's what you're seeing here. So that is just a Google Chrome window. Now, that endpoint you can share and you can put it into other software. So we natively support vMix, OBS, and Caspar CG. And using those applications, you can then also output to your professional video infrastructure. So you can go and output key and fill using OBS and put that into your professional video switcher. You can also, that way, you can do NDI. So if you are doing NDI and you want to integrate with a TriCast or something like that, you can do that using OBS or vMix and pump that out directly on the network.
And with OBS being open source, that means it basically becomes a free extension for people that want to, use this in that downstream way. So it's not something they need to add.
Absolutely, and it's we find that it's very useful as well. Because we often tend to need something like a playout or an intro, yep. And we can use OBS for that as well. So it's kind of hitting two birds with one stone.
So one of the other things I wanted to touch on is around the business model you have behind this, how people can access it to get started with it. So if you give me a little more flavor here, I think there's something I'd like to let people jump on and get started with.
Yeah, for sure. So we decided to make it pretty simple for people to get started with holographics. So if you go to the website at hologfx.io, you literally can just download the application right there. You don't even have to leave your email address. So there really is no barrier to entry. You can download the free version, and the only limitation in the software is that you can only add a single widget at once. And so you can play around with it, and if all you need to do is add your lower third to a live stream, you can do that with the free version. You don't even need to get the professional version for that. So we think that's a really good incentive also for like students and education programs to really get started with custom graphics really easily. Now, if you do need to go pro, if you need to have more than one widget, we decided to be really flexible with our pricing model. So we have an option of going a monthly subscription, which is $20 a month, and that gives you everything. You can cancel that at any time as well. And then we also have the option of buying the software, and then you own version 1. And that will keep working perpetually. And at some point, when we do release version 2, we're going to have a competitively priced upgrades fee.
So this is really interesting as an approach, and I think this is probably the next generation, the same way that NDI sort of redefines connectivity and is rooted in IP and TCP. I think this approach has that same flavor to it. So I think it's really exciting, what you guys are doing, and I want to make sure though that people know how to find you, how to find Holographics, because if I remember, the name on the website is not that, so we want to make sure that people can get in touch with you.
We've been reading the FAQ.
Absolutely. So
the website is hologfx.io.
So, okay, and if anybody has any follow-up, they could go there. Is there an email they should have if they want to reach out to you guys? Or
I think best would be Floris at hologfx.io, and he is the one answering all the questions, totally.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much for making the time. This is fascinating.